You are at war with yourself and likely don't realize it. Your thoughts, beliefs, habits, and actions often sabotage you. Are they helping you overcome adversity or setting you up for failure? To win this battle, you must connect with your inner warrior. We all have a warrior within us, one that strengthens our resolve and helps us to rise to meet life's challenges. If you're just surviving rather than thriving, then it's time to embrace the warrior archetype, live the warrior ethos, and ascend. If you are a veteran, first responder, or someone looking to take charge of your life, find your tribe, and then be the hero of your own story, this podcast is for you. Join Mike Kinney and Matt Hastings, two retired U.S. Army officers who served in U.S. Army Special Operations and Army Aviation units, as they share with you optimal performance practices they learned in their time with the Military and Warriors Ascent, a 501c3 nonprofit that helps veterans and warriors with PTS.
Well, all right. Welcome to the Warriors Ascent podcast with your hosts, Mike and Matt. So today we're going to talk about getting the right people on the bus. So in keeping with the theme of tribe and community and all of that, you know, it's this notion of, hey, well, what makes an all-star team, right? So if you want the right team around you, the right team of people, how does one go about that? Like, you know, to run either a good organization, a good team, or whatever it might be. So of course we borrow from Jim Collins, good to great, get the right people on the bus. So we'll talk about that. We'll kind of break that out a little bit more. But, you know, first and foremost, let me start by saying, you're asking, have you ever been with a group, you know, on the bus with people that were not the right people? You know, I mean, I can tell, you know, multiple stories about, you know, early on realizing that the people that I was on board with were the either A, not the high performers, B, weren't on the bus for the right reasons. You know, they're very maybe self-serving, or, you know, they're hiding agendas. You know, I like to say, everyone's heard of the question behind the question, but to me, there's always the issue behind the issue and then the agenda behind the agenda. And when people hide their agendas from you, you know, sometimes you're like, that is not the right person on the bus. So I'm sure everyone out here has probably experienced that, like, oh my God, hey, this team, well, you know, why is it that we can't make progress or headway, or why is there all this, you know, strife and et cetera, right, et cetera. So what's your experience with that, brother?
Yeah, I mean, this starts to make me think of one time we did a huge unit move. Like, we got caught up in a big change of forces from Europe and moved the 1st Infantry Division to Fort Riley, Kansas. And
big red one, man.
The big red one. And during that, a lot of displaced people. And all of a sudden we had a new flight company that was kind of a conglomeration of several other flight companies from Germany. And the unit we didn't know, we kind of stayed together as a unit. So they were this like 3rd flight company, and they were doing bad. And it didn't matter because I had the best company. I was in charge of the best company, and I was like loving it because I had my best team, and I groomed this team. You know, I worked really hard, and now I put it together back in the U.S., and we're ready to go. Started seeing this 3rd team. Man, they were not ready to go, and it was causing issues for me and my team constantly. We're having to pick up for them, you know. So finally, I went and saw the boss and asked him if I could be on their team. And he's like, "What are you doing? Why would you want to go to that team?" I was like, "One, it's going to be a huge challenge. They need somebody to lead them, and we're just going to be the best company in the battalion. It's, you know, it's just what I want to do." And he's like, "Okay." And I said, "Well, I want to call them the black sheep." And he's like, "No." And I'm like, "They want to be called the black sheep, and they think it's because they're, you know, being treated bad. But I want to call them the black sheep because of a famous aviation unit,
Baba Black Sheep.
The Baba Black Sheep.
That's right. I remember the series back in the 60s,
from Pappy
or
Boynton, and
right.
like, and he's like, "That in mind, you can be the black sheep." You know, so we went back and we started with misfits. Really did. People that were upset, weren't there for the right reason, didn't think we were on the team, and I got to put together my bus, and it was pretty awesome. I mean, out of a limited selection, of course, of who was around, but I got to move people around until I had the right people in the right seats on the bus and prepare to go to Iraq, in a short time. So that was pretty interesting, concept, and to find who is on your team and then watch people like go, oh, and slowly gain and get on the bus and be a good player on that bus,
Well, so, no, absolutely. We've all seen commanders, quite frankly. I'll say in some instances, much to my chagrin, at first, maybe I didn't understand it. But then after a while, I'm like, all right, I kind of see. Commander will come in and he'll bring some of his people, especially the officers. All right, hey, he was a commander in a previous unit, like a lower, a battalion commander, then they go on to be group commander, whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden they bring staff officers from that unit. And I looked at that and it's like, all right, I understand that. These are his people. I get it. But to me, it was one of those, and I'm not saying I'm a super professional guy. I mean, I think I am. But, to me, I'm like, why is it that you feel that you have to do that? Because my job as a professional military officer is to support you no matter what. I may not know who you are, and most of the times you didn't, unless it was somebody that had served in the unit previously and then had been promoted, and you're like, hey, so-and-so's back. That's great. I've worked for him before. It's going to be great working for him again. In other instances, they come from another unit, another group in Special Forces, and you're like, hey, man, my job is to be a professional and make you successful. And whatever you say, hey, this is what I need, I'm going to do my level best to give it to you.
Yep.
So I was always kind of like, oh, dirty nepotism. What is this all about? But then, I'll say later in life, I began to realize that you can't always take for granted that people are going to do the right things if you don't know them, as sad as that might be. You would like to believe that you can have faith in people's professionalism, that they're going to do the right things for the right reasons. And you come to realize the value in having that known quantity. So getting the right people on the bus, I'll say first and foremost, starts with ideological alignment. Like, hey, they're loyal. They're going to do the right things for the right reasons. And I think, Jim Collins talks about that here. The right people, attitude, motivation, ethics, right? Ethos, values. That's pretty darn important, I'd say, first and foremost. And while I think you could look at somebody's resume and ascertain or surmise what their skills are, that, all right, hey, they've got the right skill base. But to know somebody, hey, what they're really about and what they stand for, I think that takes more personal interaction, and maybe experience with that person, which to me, in the end, I'm like, maybe I understand that. They understand this person. That's why they brought them on board. They're a known quantity. I think the skills, just as important, no doubt, but I think the skills are assessed far more readily just by virtue of the position that you hold, or the schools that you've been through, the rank that you have in the military. One would hope, but the bigger thing is, hey, philosophically, ideologically, again, attitudinally, is this somebody that I can trust? Is this the right person that I need on the bus with me? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think when we had our feet were held to the fire, for instance, there's a reason we have to get good. It's not because we are going to sell a widget and we need to make this quarterly sales. It's because we have 4 months and we're deploying to the surge in Iraq, and we're going to Baghdad, where we're going to support like operations in the city, and it's really hairy there right now. And this is no joke, this isn't about who got more flight time today, or like who's the stick pig, and like who, it's like, this is known, like we're putting together the right people to be in the right crews to fulfill the missions we need to do, and so everyone comes home alive. Under night vision goggle conditions in an urban environment, people trying to kill us.
Right. So it's very mission oriented, mission focused. Yeah. It's not careerism. Hey, I need more stick time so I can get promoted. It's
but no, once you realize that,
you need to be the best guy or gal for this job.
Yeah, and I think through like mutual understanding of like, this is where we truly are. You can get the buy-in, I think is what it was, and get people to change that mindset to go, holy cow, these people that are with me are doing it. They're giving their effort. They're here at night till the late. They're the last ones here. They're the first ones to show up, stuff like that. That's what they're seeing. And then so suddenly it's like, oh, I'm changing my reasoning to be here every day. I'm coming more prepared than I was in the past because they're tying a reality to it. Before, I guess it's just some kind of daily grind. I don't know. But when you tie this purpose to it and you tell them, you're sitting in this position on my bus and you're the only one I got. You're the skill set I need. You're a maintenance test pilot. I need you to be fixing aircraft or else we aren't doing missions, and that isn't going to happen. So, or I need you to be an instructor pilot so that we create more pilots in command so that we can have a day off sometimes when we're deployed.
Self-sustaining.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
But so I think that company, I was talking about the black sheep, we did go from like, holy cow, under everything. They really were the black sheep of the battalion to like, I thought that was the premier company I've ever been involved in. And it was the point in my career that I'm most proud of, being a company level leader at that, in the trenches with those guys and gals every single day. And
being able to take a unit that was kind of like, by your description, an ad hoc unit.
Very ad hoc.
I'm going to say ash and trash. That sounds, pejorative, but they didn't have maybe the unit cohesion that was typical. And you're like, all right, I'm gonna assemble this
right, and then,
unit and bring it to a high level, which is good.
And then we started functioning well as a team, and then we got where we're going. And what did they do? They broke our team apart, But because we were a strong team, and we weren't these weird factions, everybody then just was able to pile together and make a new, smaller team and continue on doing with the same ideas, So it was a really good experience to be involved with. And I mean, that's like a 2-year from beginning to end experience to see that whole cycle occur,
Yeah. I'll say, getting the right people on the bus, with Jim Collins, very business oriented, obviously, and correlating that to, we'll say, our veteran and first responder population. I don't think anybody goes into the military, law enforcement, fire, EMS to make a ton of money.
Right.
So that's one of the first discriminators. And when I say discriminator, what I mean is, hey, this isn't necessarily a person that, hey, I'm here for the paycheck, man. It's usually a little bit more than that, which is good. It's kind of like, self-screening selection.
Yeah.
Then there's, I'll say, the elite units, hey, Rangers, Special Forces. I remember going to, SFAS and all that stuff. And I'll say this. I'll use this anecdote. I used to be an in-service SF recruiter. So I was a battalion assistant operations officer, as a captain, new major. And then between going to the Commander General Staff College and the School of Advanced Military Studies, here at Fort Leavenworth as a student, I had time to kill and I was an SF recruiter. So in service, meaning, hey, I didn't have to hit the street. It was recruiting, in the Army. But, at the same time, it was a time where they brought the AT and X-ray program back on board, which is the SF Baby program. So prior to that, you had to be, in the Army, in service, time in rank, time in grade, whatever it might be, a couple years. And with the reintroduction, because they brought that had been a program that had existed in the past. And then they put it to bed and then they resurrected it. Because I think, we were told that the average age of the SF operator on a detachment was like 33 years old. Like, we were an aging force.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're like, we need some new blood. And, the implications there being is you get people that would come right off the street. They'd go to basic training, AIT, jump school, SFAS, and they'd go right into the Special Forces training pipeline if they qualified, right? Anyway, a little bit of a digression. But in my capacity as an SF recruiter, we would get people that would come in and say, I want to join Special Forces. You're like, okay, cool. And I remember this one guy came in and you sit him down and you kind of give him a look like, I'm not sure this is the person we need on the bus, man. and he was just kind of, and obviously I'm not going to name names. I don't remember the guy's name, but I remember, what stuck out to me is, well, my wife really wants me to go special forces. I was just like, dude, seriously? It's like, hey, man, if you don't want it more than anything, like, man, I want to be a Green Beret, because, man, I want that. I mean, if it's your wife telling you that you should, I want you to, you are not going to make it.
Not for the right reason.
You are not going to make it, bro.
You need some gut it out and grind hard to get through that stuff.
Right. No, exactly. Rangers, same way. I mean, so many things. If you don't have that level of intrinsic motivation, right, you're not doing it for the right reasons. So again, this isn't really a treatise on motivation and all that stuff and screening criteria. It's really more geared towards right away, you can tell you're not doing this for the right reason, man. There's not that ideological and philosophical alignment that we're looking for. I mean, if you're there because you want to impress your girlfriend or you want a tab so that you can, dude, hey man, you are not what we want. So that criteria, getting the right people on the bus first and foremost.
Right.
Then tied to what Jim Collins is saying here, once you've met that criteria, hey, you're in it for the right reasons. We're going to put you through the ringer. And even then, there's no way you can possibly know. But I would hazard a guess and say nobody puts themselves through that ringer for some petty distinction, as Napoleon would say. Like, oh, yeah, hey, look at me. It's because they really want it. So I'd say there's some ingrained, training or screening criteria to make sure that, all right, we do in fact have the right people on the bus by virtue of them passing a very rigorous selection and assessment process in SFAS. Then there's the skills piece, which is, all right, now we're going to train you. And, obviously, much like what you've experienced, but in the special forces, you've got, varying MOSs, 18 Alpha officer, Bravo weapons, Charlie is, engineer, demolitions, right? Delta medic, Echo is your commo sergeant, and then they've got, X-rays team sergeant.
I mean, that's a pretty full bus.
Or not
Some
X-ray
pretty
chiefs,
neat
what am I
team
saying?
members,
Either way.
Some capabilities.
Here, God, I'm trying to remember now. God, I've got some of that wrong, in terms of either way. But team sergeant, you're, intel sergeant, all that Zulu, 18 Zulu. Yeah, either way. But, you're trained specifically, you're given those skills so that, you're putting the right people in the right seats on the bus, to your point.
Yep. So I guess, because we always do actionable things here on this podcast, like our audience members are sitting there thinking to themselves, like, how can I, or what is it what kind of a message can we give to them to help fill a bus?
I mean, I think we've touched on it all the while, which is that philosophical, ideological alignment. I would say in my experience, what I've seen both, in the military and I'll say Warriors Ascent in business, if people aren't in the organization or on board for the right reasons, if they have hidden agendas, if they're not mission focused, the real mission, there's going to be a lot of friction there. And, sometimes people keep that hidden. There's the overt, oh yeah, I really want to help people. And then, okay. And then other people are, about, I don't know, money and accolades or whatever it might be. So getting people that are doing it for the right reason, right, that are motivated, that's the other thing, that have the requisite motivation, right, that are intrinsically motivated, and aren't just going to sit back and, not be a good team player. That's important as well. So that to me would constitute, and people fixate on skills, and I know that's important. And you want people to have certain skills and, maybe an education level, that they'll be able to do the job. But first and foremost, I mean, you can have a very capable person. I've said this, one of the early on in my military career, I came to the conclusion that I'd rather have a platoon or a team of average dudes that were very, very motivated and committed.
Agree.
Because you could do so much more with them than a bunch of absolute super studs, that had unlimited potential, but lackluster motivation or hidden agendas or were prima donnas, because it doesn't matter how much unrealized potential or how much potential they have, it goes unrealized if they're not in it for the right reasons. Whereas if you've got, I'll say average dudes that are motivated, hungry to learn, eager to be better and to grow. I mean, you can do so much with people like that. Though that to me is why I put so much emphasis on the right people on the bus. I mean, starts first and foremost with that attitude, motivation, ethos, ethics, values.
As an instructor pilot, I would sit down with all sorts of personalities and get ready to go on a mission. And it usually started at a table. We called it table talk. And there'd be a lot of oral subjects I would go over. We'd have a flight plan. We'd have risk assessments. We do all this certain paperwork, weather. And there's a lot of opportunity to talk knowledge in every single thing we're doing. And there's manuals we may have to jump to look things up. And I'm testing to see if they even understand how to use our manuals, just making them work and just evaluating everything they're doing. And sometimes I'll get a person that just, I can't stump them on anything. They might not totally understand, but man, you can tell they put a lot of effort into showing up for this event. And then we get out to an aircraft and they know all the things I'm talking to them about, all the things that they could spend time studying. Then we get in, we crank it up, and we go to fly, and man, they can't fly. They're terrible. It's like, geez, I'm grabbing the controls all the time going, whoop, dang, you're terrible. I mean, they can't practice that unless they're with me, but so I'll give that person all day because they've gave me everything. Okay. Then sometimes I'll come and here comes Coolio pilot. Doesn't know a thing. Doesn't spend 2 seconds studying. We get out the aircraft. He can't point to a component that he understands. But you get in the aircraft and this person can fly. Like talented flyer and cool, fun, can understand the radios, but just no effort. Doesn't put any effort in. And it's like, people want that guy. And I'm like, I don't want that guy. You can have him.
Right.
What are you doing? You're giving away that guy? And I'm like, that guy in a pinch is not going to give you any effort. This guy over here, that guy's a total, yeah. But I'm telling you, nobody's surpassing him in effort, And through that kind of effort, he's going to start gaining. And he's going to outperform this dude 10 times inside of 6 months. You watch.
No, see, that brings up an anecdote, not a personal one, but I was listening to Robert Greene's Mastery, and he talks about, I'm going to get the guy's name wrong. He was like, this Air Force pilot. I want to say Rodrigo something. It was, Latin has Hispanic name. And I think early on that was, uncommon, to have like a fighter ace. And that's exactly the story that this fella told, was that there were natural pilots that just had the aptitude and the acumen naturally. And this fella, he really had to work. Mm-hmm. He really had to work because it didn't come naturally to him. So he had to have processes and systems in place. Right. And for a while, he really felt, man, I'm going to wash out. And these guys, it comes so easy to. But in the end, he proved to be among the best pilot, if not the best pilot, simply because he had to work. He established that work ethic. And then there came a time where that learning, his ability then to learn, versus rely on his latent, innate ability,
right?
Where that, is limiting, surpassed their skill set. And he ended up being like a very successful, fighter ace. I'm trying to remember if it was Vietnam or Gulf War or something like that. But no, a very interesting story where, much to your point, exactly. And at first they're like, oh, hey, these are the studs. Things come naturally to them. And he's struggling, but he doubled down. He redoubled his efforts. He was committed. He showed that tenacity and that intrinsic motivation and the
That's
good
right.
news story is in the end that served him well. And
I've seen it though too, where that person stayed mediocre throughout their career, but it's like, hey, like I will give, that person stayed alive, but worked hard. Everybody would fly with him and say, man, he's always prepared. You got to watch him. He's not that good. It's like, yeah, but do you like flying with him? It's like, yeah, because he does everything, does everything right. Just isn't very good. So it's like, you're not going to get into the 160th that way, even remotely.
Probably not. Right, exactly. But nor is the other guy.
No, exactly.
Because they're not going to stand for that cavalier, fly by the city. Yeah. I mean, not that I know, but I understand that
most of them are not.
I'll say the special operations community and that kind of prima donna, it does not fly.
No, that doesn't.
You're by the book.
Yeah.
Those are the last things, like in closing. So, aligning skills. So, the military, principle of leadership is employ your units in accordance with their capabilities, right? So,
yeah.
Part of, once you've gotten the right people on the bus, next is put them in the right seats, right? Don't set them up for failure, set them up for success. I'll say what I've grappled with is there's I'll say a counter to that. There's some people that feel, hey, especially I'll say to my kids or some of the younger people, I just want to do the things that I want to do. It's like life is seldom that way. If you choose wisely your career and your skill set or whatever, hey, it should be aligned with what you enjoy, what you like, what you're good at, no doubt. But, and you want to align against, people's strengths, no doubt. But to think that you can go through life without having to do things that,
aren't fun.
You might be in the right seat, but the guy behind you might be kicking you, in the back, the kid in the back, so it's not all peaches and cream, sunshine and rainbows, so I never want to set up this notion that, everything is going to be copacetic and, and everyone's going to be doing exactly what they've been meant to do. Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. But bottom line, employ your units in accordance with the capabilities. Don't use, an infantry unit to, attack an armored unit, unless they've got, javelin missiles or something. No, but don't set them up for success. And, there's a multitude of stories of, I think, the Rangers in, I want to say World War II, after Pointe du Hoc or whatever, that just got annihilated by like a Panzer division because, hey, you guys are Rangers, you do great things, go take these guys out. And it's like, that's not really what they were built for. So you had, guys on the bus, not in the right seats, man, because that was not their skill set.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's important as well. No, so again, getting back to Warriors Ascent, mental health, all of that, so are we trying to build a, great organization? Yeah, sure you can, that's part of that. But the other thing, in as much as mental health and tribe and community and the theme that we're trying to touch upon is be around people that are doing it for the right, are there for the right reasons. And that can be a job, a duty position, can be a relationship, can be your friends. Are you with me because you like me or are you trying to get something from me? Okay. And then two, hey, right seats. That kind of gets back to our previous conversation. Surround yourself with people that, hey man, they can make you better, right? Maybe they have a skill set you don't have or whatever it might be.
Right.
So.
Very good.
Yeah. I think that's it, brother.
It does. I think, I don't know what more you can say about it.
Yeah. So my last bullet, culture trumps strategy. And sometimes I bristle at culture. You hear culture all the time. I mean, I definitely think there's something to that. You have to have the right organizational culture. Absolutely. Sometimes I think it's overplayed. Like it's really all about culture. Culture is super important, no doubt. But when they say it's like culture or strategy is downstream of culture or whatever it might be. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have, again, the right people on the bus, you can come up with this great strategy and
not be able to execute.
You won't be able to execute it or won't come to fruition because it's either subverted by hidden agendas or, you've got people that they'll tell you, oh, yeah, I'm on board for that. And they're doing something completely different. So, while on one hand I go, yeah, sometimes I'm tired of it's all about culture discussion. But I think there's some veracity
Yeah.
in that comment. In that if you don't have that right, it's really going to be self-limiting. And I think that's both organizationally and, again, the people that you surround yourself with. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. That's a good spot to leave it.
Yeah. We'll see you all next time. Bye.
Hi, Matt Hastings here, sending a thank you for watching this episode of the Warriors Ascent podcast. We strive to build a community of warriors made up of our nation's veterans and first responders. And to reach as many of those in need as possible, we need your help. Please just smash that like button and comment or share our content. Warriors Ascent is a Kansas City-based nonprofit that aids veterans and first responders with PTS. I went through this effective program and want those that are struggling to find what I found. Check us out on our website at warriorsascent.org.